Have you ever had to write a document but not been sure of where to begin or how to introduce your topic? Or maybe you knew exactly what it was that you wanted to write, but you weren't sure how to organize it or format it. In both cases, today's topic, context, might be just what you need. The Writing Dojo. Hi, I'm Kevin, and welcome to The Writing Dojo, where I offer simple tips for better writing. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, and be sure to click the description below for links and additional information. Today's topic is context. What is the situation? What is the scenario? Why are you writing this document? To whom are you writing it? What is your role? And what kind of document is it that you're going to be preparing? Let's consider fashion as an example. I'm a college English instructor, and the first day of the semester, I like to show up in a suit and bow tie. However, in the second week of the semester, I show up in jeans and a t-shirt. The point I'm making to my class when I do this is that just like we might dress differently in different situations, we all write and speak differently in different contexts. So here's an example of when I first realized the importance of context. I was at a mall when I was a teenager with my parents, and there was a certain way you act when you're around family members, around people you know. The thing was, as I was at the mall, around the corner came a group of friends. Now, they weren't with their parents. They saw me and came up and wanted to talk to me, and I was in an awkward situation. On the one hand, I was with my family, and they were used to seeing me speak and act a certain way. On the other hand, they were my friends, and I didn't want them to see me with my parents. That wasn't really cool. And I felt this really awkward sensation of not being sure how I should act. That was the first time I realized that I acted and spoke differently in different circumstances. It really left an impression on my mind. And the thing is, I don't really know. Where do students go now? Where do teenagers go? They don't go to the mall anymore, do they? I don't know. I'm not that old, but... So anyway, it's like this in writing contexts. You might find yourself writing in an academic or professional situation one day, and an informal situation another. And your writing will be different. Now, when I'm writing an academic or professional paper, I'm going to have a certain level of formality. I'm going to use clear language and organization and a sophisticated style and precise vocabulary. But when I'm in a classroom or in front of the camera right here, or writing an email to a family member or a friend, or posting on Instagram, I'm going to write in a more informal way. And that's fine. That's just the way it is. You write and speak differently in different contexts. This is a fairly broad concept that I'll actually return to in later episodes. However, for today, we're really thinking about two key points. First, how the context you find yourself in as a writer dictates how and what you write in the first place. And secondly, how you need to provide the context for your reader, usually in the introduction or before you use an outside source. I'll introduce you to the RAFT model. That's an acronym that stands for the 4 key factors that are influenced by context. And then I'll talk about how you can use what I call the person in the hallway test to make sure you've provided the proper background information. Here's a helpful acronym that can help you remember the 4 key aspects of context: role, audience, form, and topic. First of all, we've got the topic. What is your purpose? What is it that you're writing about? Then you want to think about the audience. To whom are you writing this document? Now you can consider your role as a writer and the format you want to use to convey this information. The topic, form, audience, and role all together are going to shape the kind of document you write, how you write it, what you leave out. The other issue related to context that I want to talk about today is the context that you provide for your reader. The introduction of many formal documents, such as academic papers and business letters, should perform 2 key functions. First of all, you want to provide the background information about the subject you're writing about. And secondly, you want to articulate your argument, your thesis, your purpose for writing in the first place. Some students don't know where to begin a paper, and so they start way too early. This is where you get essays like, "Since the beginning of time, texting and driving has been an issue." Some students don't provide enough information. They assume that their reader knows what they know. This happens very often in class activities and assignments when students are all reading the same document. This is where I like to use the person in the hallway test. If I took someone out in the hallway, not in the classroom, who does not know the assignment, who does not know the reading, and I were to give this person your paper, would you provide enough information, enough background, enough context in your introduction for your argument to make sense? If you're writing about a book, for instance, introduce the book, explain the author's name, provide the title, and provide a brief synopsis of it. If you're writing about a movie, provide the director's name, maybe some of the key actors, the title of the movie, and again, a brief synopsis. If you're writing about a sporting event, then provide the context for that. Write about the history of the event or recent teams that have won the championship. The introduction is all about providing the background information. It's all about providing the context. If you do that effectively, the reader is going to be more likely to understand your argument. This concept is also helpful in the body of the essay, within a paragraph, especially if you're about to pull in some outside information to make a point. Provide the background for that outside source. What is the author's name? What is the title of that source? Or, in some cases, you might use a generic signal phrase, something like, one author writes that, or one recent publication suggests that. Doing so provides the context for your reader and lets them know that you are providing information from an outside source. So that's the show for today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out TheWritingDojo.com for additional resources and information, and leave me a comment below, especially if you know where it is that teenagers hang out these days, since it's clearly not the mall. Thank you so much. Until next time, happy writing. If you're new here, consider subscribing. And why do I have a hard time with this? So that's the show for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two. Learned a thing or two? Ugh. So that's the show for today. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out TheWritingDojo.com for additional resources and information. And leave a comment below. Say hello. Say hello to YouTube.